ready for garbage, because it feels like Summerslam season now, doesn't it? Instead of booking good shows, I'm gonna go to the White House and do nothing, because I waste my time, and make everything about me, like unreal. I'm gonna tell Rhea Ripley, don't you fix that anxiety, you're the best, you're the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, SummerSlam Night 1 has officially ended, and I have to say, the ending was absolutely awesome, okay? This show had so many moments, man. The ending with Rollins cashing in. Wow, man. This show was absolute garbage. The show sucked. The ending was good. Yes, still a bunch of plot holes with it because a lot of things that happened with the Rollins cash-in make absolutely no sense, but I will give them credit for working us with the injury that Rollins had, and then obviously now he cashes in, and basically does an absolute bamboozling of the fans and of CM Punk and all the wrestlers. I thought that was absolutely great in terms of it being a specific moment, but as per usual, Triple H, the stuff that follows after that moment is likely not going to make sense and probably not going to be good. Just like Rollins sided with Heyman at Mania 41, and you got 3 months of a garbage faction so far. However, don't let this ending that was a really good moment and the very creative the way they did it, very good moment, don't let it distract you from the fact that this show was complete garbage up until that point. You had moments here and there that I thought were decent, but there was nothing above decent on the rest of this show besides the ending, and you know that. All of these matches suffer from similar issues, such as the build for all these matches are terrible. The builds, I should say, are terrible. The storylines for them are garbage. Therefore, you don't care who wins or loses these matches. And also another issue that these matches have is simply the fact that they weren't entertaining and they weren't that good. A lot of lazy booking ruined these matches a lot. Like Roman and Jay versus Braun and Brunson, you know what I'm saying? I'm just going to start calling LeBron. I'm just going to say Roman and Jay versus LeBron. Those dudes ran out there, and that match was mid at best. You had a couple decent spots, but no one's going to go back and rewatch that match. There was some decent action in it, but stop. It's nothing above average. Then you also have the, what's it called? What was the next thing we had, bro? Well, I think it was Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair versus Raquel and Roxanne. That match should have been much better. We'll get to that. Obviously, we have to talk about the New Day, who were doing a Pizza Hut commercial or Domino's, whatever it was. These dudes were just the tag team champions a few weeks ago, and now they're doing the food ad on a PLE, which means they're officially in jobber territory with Tozawa and Maxine Dupree, and even Nikki Bella showed up. That's how good Triple H books his talent, by the way, apparently, okay? Then we had Karrion Kross versus Sami Zayn. This is a Raw match that nobody cares about. We're going to talk about that later, because Karrion Kross's career is probably done in WWE, so that's pretty much that. Then we had Jade versus Tiffany. We'll talk about that. That match was okay. I guess it's okay. We'll talk about that. And then the Jelly Roll in Randy Orton tag match versus Drew and Logan Paul was a complete joke, but it was intended to be a joke, so we'll talk about that. And then obviously the Punk and Gunther main event. I have some thoughts on that match. I mean, goodness gracious, bro. And then the ending, obviously, with Rollins cashing in, we're going to get to that as well. So, as per usual, we're going to go ahead and get into this review. Now, before we get into the review, I will want to say, people are going to say some things about this show. Number one, they're going to complain about the crowd. Yes, the crowd was garbage. The reason why is because none of these matches really had any enthusiasm or energy. It's in an open-air stadium, and MetLife Stadium, I think, sits around like 80,000 people total, but they had to make the stage to cover up part of the arena because they knew they weren't going to sell out good tickets. So I think there was only maybe 50,000 people in the arena. So yes, a bunch of empty seats were in there. That's why it wasn't as loud, because it's an open air stadium, plus there's not as many people. Like last year, I went to Mania 40 last year, and it was at Lincoln Financial, you know what I'm saying, in Philly. There was over 70,000 people in there. I think the stadium sits around 75,000. And obviously the stage is going to block off thousands of the seats, so you have to block that out. But it was basically dang near, if not sold out on the dot, okay? And now at MetLife Stadium, a similar size arena, they can barely fit 50,000 people in it. That lets you know that the storylines in the company is dying. They can't sell out, and the product is garbage. Then on top of that, obviously you look at this card for night one, and you knew it was not going to be good at all. Everyone knew this in advance, or at least anyone who was actually thinking about this build or this show at all was actually realizing this was not going to be good in advance. At least night one is not. You look at this card, it was terrible. And I saw people saying that this card looks promising. Yeah, it's promising to be bad. And then obviously, it just doesn't feel like a SummerSlam. This is 2 nights. It's supposed to feel big and grandiose and bigger than any SummerSlam we've seen, and night one of SummerSlam felt like a Saturday night main event at best. And obviously, it goes without saying, because all the storylines and the build for this SummerSlam as a whole and leading into this actual show was straight garbage, the only way this show could be successful is if every match was either in the good to great range or was even above that and absolutely amazing. And none of these matches hit the marker. So with that being said, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into the show. We started off with Braun Breaker or LeBron James versus Jey Uso and Roman Reigns, okay? That's basically what this was. Now, obviously, Obviously, Roman Reigns is the only actual main event level star in the match. He comes out literally built like a Greek god at this point, and every single time Roman Reigns shows up, he looks like he's literally ready to fight like Brock Lesnar or The Rock or John Cena in a main event match. That's just how this dude looks, that's how he's presented, and that's how he appears, because he is the last superstar in professional wrestling, okay? This is just a fact. We've gone over this before. Basically, he comes out, Roman Reigns gets a massive pop basically from the crowd, but Roman Reigns essentially comes out and he gets into the ring. Before this happened, we had Jey Uso yeeting for like 10 minutes straight. I want to note that it was around like 6:20 p.m. Eastern time, okay? And the match had still not started yet. So we got ads and entrances for the first like 20 minutes of the show. Roman Reigns came out, obviously got a big pop. It was a great shots of everything like that. Him and Jay standing there tall. Then we had Braun Breaker and LeBron James, Brunson Reed came out there, and they basically started the match. The match starts off, and it's very clear to see that this is going to be a lazily booked match. It makes zero sense why, number one, Roman Reigns just being classically held on the sidelines until like the last 5 minutes of the match when he's finally able to fight back, and then him and Jay get the win. That's lazy booking. There's no nuance, there's no creativity with that, and it's not that entertaining. The first 10 to 15 minutes of this match are borderlining on being nearly unwatchable. No one's entertained by Jey Uso fighting Brunson Reed. We've seen that 80 times on Raw. We've seen Jey Uso fight Braun Breaker 80 times on Raw. Maybe if you would have mixed Roman Reigns in and had him do more action with Brunson and Braun Breaker, maybe it would have been cool, but you didn't do that. And it makes no sense how Roman Reigns, who's one of the greatest, if not the greatest champion in WWE history, this was just a year ago his title reign ended, and now you fast forward a year and he's basically subdued the whole match and barely has any offense until the final parts, and even then he still doesn't do much. It's embarrassing. Jey Uso as well just was a world champion a month ago and is struggling to fight and have offense against Brunson Reed and Braun Breaker? Like, what? The sense that this match makes is basically non-existent. Two former world champs, one of them being the greatest champion ever, and they're struggling to fight Brunson Reed and Braun Breaker. It's artificial booking, and it makes it unrealistic and just stupid. Braun Breaker's no-selling everything. He gets speared through a barricade. Then Roman Reigns gets back into the ring, and then all of a sudden, Jey Uso tries to go for a pin on Brunson Reed, and Braun Breaker's back up in 1 minute. And while Roman Reigns and Jey are down, and they didn't even take any moves. It's just the way that they booked this to be so slow and have people knocked out on the side of the ring and make Roman and Jey look so weak when they shouldn't be looking weak is just stupid. And then obviously it ends. Roman Reigns, by the way, there were some really good spots here. Braun Breaker did a big bulldog from the top rope off of Brunson Reed's shoulders, which I thought was great. Roman Reigns hit a really crazy dive where he like fully flipped over the ropes and landed like on his back kind of. So I'm glad he's okay. But him showing that athleticism is nuts, man. Roman Reigns is a great athlete. He doesn't wrestle like it because he doesn't, have those moves in his arsenal. He doesn't feel like doing them. But if he wanted to, Roman Reigns could literally be doing swanton bombs and dives over the rope every match. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. So that was pretty cool to see. And then obviously Roman Reigns speared Braun Breaker through a barricade, and then ultimately he put himself in the way to take a spear from Braun Breaker so that Jey Uso could come in and super kick Braun Breaker, and then obviously pin LeBron James, Brunson Reed, and then get the splash on him, and that was it. Jey Uso and Roman Reigns won. Jey pinned Brunson Reed for the W. This match had some decent moments of action, but overall the storytelling and the actual, impact of this match is basically non-existent. Nobody cares who won this match, and quite frankly, having Roman Reigns go out for an opening tag match and beating Brunson Reed and Braun Breaker, and then proceeding to later on in the night not show up when his arch nemesis who pinned him at Mania, Seth Rollins, who he never got his payback on, just not showing up for that match, and Jey Uso not showing up for that in LA Knight, who might be out of the company, you know what I'm saying? Because he's not being used at all. How do none of them come out for Seth Rollins later in the night when he's about to cash in? It doesn't make sense, but you know what? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Jey and Roman get the dub in a match that was mildly decent at best. Nothing more, nothing less. Then we move on. We got Alexa Bliss and Charlotte versus Raquel and Roxanne. I was looking forward to this match because I've been saying for weeks, I think that that Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, this whole storyline with them becoming friends could have been much better. But when they won this match, you literally felt nothing. The whole match, the crowd was basically dead and non-existent. They had to do multiple, when you're on the tag match and they're trying to get the crowd to clap like that, you know what I'm saying, to get them into the match. They had to do that a billion times because nobody cared. The crowd wasn't feeling it for the most part. I wasn't feeling it for the most part. The last couple minutes have some decent moments where, Alexa hits Charlotte and then you don't know what's going to happen with that. But obviously we all knew Charlotte was going to be on the good side at the end and help Alexa get the dub. But ultimately just the way the match took place, I thought the story could be great. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte are two of my favorite women's wrestlers. And the fact that this match ended up being that mid at best, not even, it was honestly bad in certain parts. There were some botches. There was moments where literally I dozed off and tuned out just like the crowd was completely silent. This was just not a good match. match, man. And it should have been much better, and that's very disappointing to see this. But it had the rightful winners, in my opinion, with Alexa and Charlotte. But, I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if it was the rightful winners. Because if you're not going to book them correctly and make it feel like a special moment when Alexa and Charlotte finally team up and become friends, then what was the point of taking the belts off Roxanne and Raquel? Because now you know Roxanne and Raquel are finna do a whole lot of nothing until Liv comes back. So it is what it is. I thought it was stupid, but, you know, hey, the match was very underwhelming and quite much a disappointment. Yeah, pretty much that. Pretty bad. We then move on to what is in my opinion, is easily the worst match of the night. We got Karrion Kross versus Sami Zayn. This match was garbage. Sami Zayn, as much crap as I've given him in the past, this dude is a great in-ring wrestler. There's no argument, there's no doubt about it, okay? He is absolutely awesome in the ring. And the fact that Sami Zayn has had 3 matches with Karrion Kross over the last couple months, and not one of the matches has even been average, is a very telling sign about Karrion Kross. Because if this was Sami Zayn, you can run down the list. If this is Sami Zayn versus LA Knight, or versus Drew McIntyre, or versus a Logan Paul, or versus a Roman Reigns, a Cody Rhodes, a Seth Rollins, etc., go down the list. This, even versus Jey Uso, this match would be much better. But Karrion Kross, he just moves like he's in quicksand, dude. You know, he's not good in the ring. His moveset isn't that great. Obviously, he's not that entertaining, right? He's not super athletic in the ring, so there's nothing there. He just doesn't have it. And so all the people saying, we want Kross, for 2 or 3 weeks, this dude was over, you know what I'm saying? And now you look where he's at now, and he's just having constant bad matches. Nobody cares what this dude is doing. He came out to a mediocre / non-existent pop at best tonight at Summerslam, and this is a grand stage. This is his last opportunity, and he showed me absolutely nothing other than the fact that he is a mediocre performer at best, and that's being kind of generous. So that, you know what I'm saying? Like, no offense, but that's just what it is. And I'm always going to give you guys the honest truth, at least my honest truth of what I believe, and I think Karrion Kross is a full-blown jobber. Everyone's saying, we want Kross. You should be chanting, we want Knight, or we want Mellow Hayes, or something like that. Not, we want Kross. Karrion Kross does not have it, and he likely is going to be fired now, or released, I guess you could say, because this match was garbage. This feud and this story was meaningless. What was the point of this? What, Karrion Kross, you want Sami Zayn to say it? Say it! What do you want him to say? What, like, what are you even talking about? Like, this whole feud, there's a reason there was no video package before this match, because none of this matters, and there's no storyline here. So, it was just stupid. You know, the opening of Karrion Kross's entrance says fall and pray. I'm like, no, you fall and job. That's what you do. You fall and job, you know? So, it's pretty much that, but I'm pretty sure this was Karrion Kross's last match. Sami Zayn pinned him clean, didn't even use the lead pipe, and that's pretty much it. Sami Zayn, the whole narrative on this was that he was going to turn bad, you know what I'm saying, and fight back against Kross using an illegal weapon. But that wasn't going to happen. Once he threw that pipe out of the ring and hit the haluva kick, you're like, yeah, Karrion Kross's time at WWE has come to an end. So, you know, there you have that. It's basically over with. Sami Zayn gets the dub, and I assume that Sami Zayn will probably be coming after Seth Rollins, I guess, in the coming months, but we'll see what happens with that. We then get Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship. Jade Cargill comes out in her Jamaica gear, yeah, man, boy, offy. You know what I'm saying? Your boy's got a little bit of Jamaican in him. You know, that's where some of my family heritage comes from, okay? But anyways, that's not the point. The point is, we just this match was a 7-minute WWE Women's Championship match. Explain to me how we can get a billion ads, but we can't get more than 7 minutes of a Women's WWE Championship match. It's absolutely inexcusable at this point. However, for the match's time that it had, it was entertaining and action-packed because it had to be. But because there's no story or build or any type of thought or creativity put into this, I didn't care who won this match, and we now have to continue with Tiffany Stratton's garbage reign because Jade Cargill, after one moonsault, the prettiest moonsault ever, Tiffany's finisher, after one of those moves, Jade Cargill got pinned. What? She wins the Queen of the Ring and beats Asuka, you know what I'm saying, one of the best women's wrestlers over the last, decade in this company. And then, obviously, she moves on now to fight Tiffany and loses off of one moonsault in 6 minutes, where Jade dominated most of this match, too, by the way. So it makes no sense how one move literally just knocked her out, and that was it. It was some of the dumbest booking I've ever seen, but there was some entertaining spots. I thought Tiffany got concussed one time because she took a nasty bump after Jade countered with her feet when she was trying to do the moonsault, so it was kind of like that, but overall, this match was mid at best. I'm not giving this match credit because, again, number one, Jade Cargill pinned the current WWE Women's World Champion, Naomi. She pinned her twice this year and beat the crap out of her, you know what I'm saying, at the street fight match they had at Evolution. And now you're telling me that same person gets pinned in 6 minutes after taking one legitimate actual move? Listen, I found it absolutely stupid in my opinion. The booking was bad, the storyline leading into it was bad, and for the time that it had, if you knew it had 7 minutes, you could have gone even better than what you did in this match. I didn't know it was going to be 7 minutes. If it was just going to be 7 minutes, it should have been even more action-packed and even more entertaining. So, I don't know, man. I thought this was a bad experience, and I was dang near about to fall asleep during this match, too, even though it had some decent moments. It was, it was a decent match. I'll give it that. Decent match in ring-wise, but once you start factoring in elements of story and the potential of this match and everything like that, it becomes pretty bad quickly. So, do with this what you will. This match is like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 max. Then we move on from this. We get Jelly Roll and Randy Orton versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. This match had moments where it was very awful and stupid and corny, and it had moments that were actually pretty entertaining. The moments that were entertaining were some of the comedy bits with Logan Paul and some of the comedy bits with Jelly Roll where he like hypes himself up and then looks at Drew McIntyre and he's like, I'm not built for this moment, bro. So I thought that was a pretty funny stuff. And then Logan Paul obviously had the biggest spot of the entire match. That frog splash that he did through the announce table on Jelly Roll was absolutely amazing, okay? It was a great moment, a great splash, and it actually got me excited for the first time all show. I was like, whoa, crap, that was an awesome move. That was an awesome moment. That's the problem. None of these matches felt like they had anything epic or memorable or awesome about it. You're not going back to rewatch any of these matches. And so with that being said, and this being the second biggest show of the year, can you really say that the quality was up to par with this being the second biggest show? I don't think you can. But that's a problem for another thing we'll talk about in a little bit later. But a portion of this match, outside of that big splash that Logan Paul hit, I thought was awesome. Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul obviously had to oversell the moves that Jelly Roll was doing, and all that stuff was fine. But the fact that we literally had to sit here and watch Jelly Roll get hauled out by the doctors and the referees, but we had to sit here, and while that's happening, Randy Orton's just getting stomped on. Drew and Logan just take turns tagging each other in and out and then stomping on Randy for a minute, celebrating and gloating, and then stomping for a minute and then gloating. Like, it was a very boring and just stupid and pointless match. And that's just what it is. Like, you can just tell its pointlessness multiple times throughout the match, but it is what it is. I don't really know what to say about that, okay? But at the end of the day, thankfully, Drew McIntyre nor Logan Paul get pinned here. Logan Paul ends up pinning Jelly Roll with a frog splash, which I thought was absolutely great. It still makes absolutely no sense how Jelly Roll, who is a pedestrian in the WWE storyline and outside of it, like, this dude should not be doing this match, but he does the match and then takes a frog splash through the table, which he should have just been knocked out and put on a stretcher, but apparently, I guess he's fine going through a table and getting back up in 2 minutes, I guess. I don't, like, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. The match had some, like I said, it had a couple moments that were entertaining, but the large majority of this was boring and pointless, and you could feel it heavily throughout the match. But at least Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul did not lose and get pinned by Jelly Roll, so we can move on from this. And then we got to the main event, which was Gunther versus CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship. I have to say, this match, in my opinion, is absolutely boring, okay? I don't know what happened here, but 80% of this match was absolutely nearly unwatchable at this point. The boredom was just unexciting. Dude, it's so unexciting most of this match was. That's how it is with a lot of Gunther matches and some of what Punk's done in recent months because of his age, obviously, and things of that nature, but you're just bored waiting for it to get going, and it never really gets going until the final, few minutes of the match, and I thought that was a really big waste of time. You're telling me that CM Punk and Gunther, even with Punk's older age now, you're telling me that this match couldn't have at least been good for, I'd rather have a good 15-minute match that has decent action and entertainment and storytelling than have a 30-plus minute match or however long this was of just straight boredom, Punk sitting down looking tired, exhausted, and hurt. Gunther then sits down looking tired and exhausted. He hits his chops. He talks a bit of trash while Punk is sitting down resting on the mat. The whole aspect of that and the boredom that came with it, it was so slow, so sloggy, so slowly paced, and you're not telling a story here. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you're telling any type of story or doing anything entertaining with it, so there's no point of it. I thought it was a waste of time. Realistically, this match doesn't really get going until the end, and in the actual end, Gunther gets flipped off of an announce table because he's outside celebrating and stuff like that and, kind of gloating. There were a couple good moves throughout where Gunther countered the first GTS and hit multiple power bombs. I thought that was pretty cool. He hit a lot of chops, which is good to see Gunther hitting chops again because he's barely doing it, but Gunther hit some chops here. CM Punk has some okay moves. He doesn't really do much of offense. Gunther kind of dominates the whole match, but then Gunther gloats on the outside, obviously, and then he gets taken down up the announce table. And then he obviously does a spot, where the wrestler will slide underneath the announce table and blade themselves so they get the blood out. And then this is meant to give some shock effect to the fans, but we all know, the real ones, we know what's happening here. Maybe you should make a WWE Unreal episode on that, the game. But anyways, so basically Gunther does that. They get back in the ring and magically CM Punk, after getting dominated for 20 to 30 minutes, is magically back up again, hits a GTS, you know what I'm saying? And what's it called? Just dominates, hits his elbow elbow, hits 2 GTSs after Gunther's like stunned after the first one, and then ends up pinning Gunther clean in the middle of the ring and gets the W and wins the World Heavyweight Championship. This match overall I thought was below mid. I wasn't entertained by any of this besides the last couple minutes, and that's a real shame to see. After CM Punk wins, he's crying. He's like, this is a big moment for him. He's excited. He wins the belt. He holds the championship high, and we're all just waiting at this point for Rollins to come out or his music to hit. And then CM Punk ends up, obviously raising the belt up high. Then Seth Rollins' music hits, okay? You hear the burn it down! And then, Seth Rollins is up at the ramp and he just stands there with Heyman. And at first they play it as if it's like, oh, well, Rollins can't fight, but he's just warning Seth that he's warning Punk that he has up until like next June to cash in. He then turns around, Heyman clears out, so immediately that Rollins is about to throw those crutches down and turn back around and run back at that ring. And obviously that's what he does. He throws the crutches down. It's a great shot and a great moment, I have to admit. And then Rollins throws the crutches down, turns around, takes off, the brace on his knee, grabs the Money in the Bank briefcase, and he still kind of hobbles and lowly jogs to the ring a little bit, showing you that he's probably not ready for a full match yet. His knee's probably actually injured still. That's probably why he's not wrestling a full match, most likely until either Clash in Paris or even beyond that, because he just doesn't look like he can still wrestle a full match at this current moment. But at least we know that the knee injury was not too serious, like it wasn't a torn ACL or anything like that, to the point where he can't wrestle for like 6 to 8 months. So that's that. Seth Rollins then runs back down to the ring. He beats up Punk with the briefcase, cashes it in, curb stomps Punk, and pins him 1, 2, 3, and Seth Rollins is your new World Heavyweight Champion, okay? The belt finally has a little bit of prestige, even though he already held it. The people who came after him were Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre for 3 minutes, CM Punk now for 5 minutes, and then Jey Uso, and then Gunther twice. All of those reigns I just listed off were completely garbage. So there's, you know what I'm saying? So there's nothing to speak of with them. So Rollins getting the belt is cool, I guess you can say. However, there are multiple issues with this. Number one, like I mentioned earlier, why in the world would you play on Rollins having an injury and then have LA Knight pin him? The goal then should be to push LA Knight up in the card, or at least have him come back. If Rollins ends up being healthy, LA Knight will be the first one to confront him. But LA Knight's nowhere to be seen. Roman Reigns, who still was talking about his get back on Seth Rollins and behind the scenes video I think he did on his Instagram a couple weeks ago or whatever, Roman Reigns still needs his revenge on Seth Rollins. He doesn't show up in the main event. Jey Uso and Sami Zayn were getting beat up for weeks by Rollins and his faction. They don't show up to stop him and his team in the main event. None of that makes any sense, and it renders all the Raws and the storyline with this stuff and Rollins and his faction and the way it plays up onto other wrestlers on Raw, it renders it meaningless. And that to me is bad and inconsistent and nonsensical booking, because it's just a fact. That's just what it is, you know what I'm saying? And because of that, it rendered a lot of elements of this moment that Rollins did. It made it stupid after you think about it. The moment itself, if you're watching it in a vacuum, it is an amazing moment. But then you think about it in the aftermath and you know that something bad is going to happen because, number one, it makes no sense. On top of this, another issue, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, they have been established now as the new heads of this faction. Braun Breaker has been established as the new leader. He established it himself and said he's the next up. He's the big dog. He's the one who runs this place now. So now he's going to have to go back to randomly playing a lackey to Seth Rollins now, and Bronson Reed's going to have to do the same. It doesn't make any sense. You get what I'm saying? There's a bunch of plot holes and inconsistencies with it. However, the moment is great, but there's still a bunch of issues stemming from it. So I just needed to address those and give you an honest and balanced perspective. You can't just glaze a moment and not think about the actual aftermath or the stuff that comes with it. So that's a situation with that. Overall, good moment. Rollins and his faction stand tall, and that's the situation with that. Good moment for Seth Rollins. I'm not sure the status of his knee. He might actually get the title taken from him immediately. You never know what could possibly happen. So that's a situation with that. But Seth Rollins ends up walking away as your WWE World Heavyweight Champion at the end of the show, and that's how SummerSlam Night 1 ends. This show was absolute and utter garbage, okay? Let's not kid ourselves. Good moment does not, just eliminate the fact that everything that came before it was largely either mid or bad, and that's just the facts. This SummerSlam Night 1 gets a 3 out of 10 for me. It was a pretty bad night. I almost dozed off and fell asleep multiple times while watching it, and it was garbage. But don't worry, we'll be back for tomorrow, where I do believe that the final boss, Mama Rhodes, will make his return in that John Cena and Cody Rhodes main event. But we'll just have to see what happens when we get there. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on SummerSlam in the comment sections below. And as always, I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Peace out and one love.